Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 25 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. And these are normally tales from my time in IWA Mid-South from 1997 to 2009. However, today's episode is going to be a little different. I am joined today by the newest member of the Fannin Family, the centerpiece of version 2.0 of the family, the man that on May 23rd will become the 9th different heavyweight champion in the Fannin family history, the man that has a rocket strapped to his back and will be the next big thing in professional wrestling, the Purdy hate machine, Connor Hopkins. Connor, thank you for joining the family, and thank you for joining the podcast tonight. How are you doing?
You know, Jim, I am doing fantastic, and I have to be so sincere when I say that the honor and the privilege is all mine. I am so happy not just to be on the show, but even more excited to be a part of the Fannin family. You have no idea how long I've been waiting to be able to say something like that.
Well, this is our first real chance to actually chat and talk
Hmm.
and try to get to know each other. We only had about 20 minutes to formally meet, introduce ourselves, and get to know each other at the WrestleArts show a little over a week ago now as we're
Hmm.
recording, because you had a show in Minnesota the night before,
Yeah.
and it was so close to bell time by the time that you arrived. Like we had to do our underhanded tactics, get our stuff together and try to figure out how we were going to go about it. Then I had to go sit ringside to throw everybody off the scent of
Hmm.
what was going to happen later, and be out there to take notes on all the matches and try to make other people think that they had a chance of joining the family. And I was like, come on, people, this should be blatantly obvious from the get-go. And but it left little time. I think about the only thing we said is, I'm out there. I'll interject myself should the need arise, but we've got this. And a very successful beginning to our partnership in the family as you win the title shot to face David Ali on May the 23rd back at Irving Theater. I think we're gonna have that title. He might as well just send it and forfeit the match.
You know, I agree. And it really was great. I think a great masterstroke by the two of us putting all of that together because, yeah, it should have been obvious, like from the very beginning, if anyone was going to join the Fannin family, who it was going to be. And there were still so many of those fans who had absolutely no idea what was coming. It was unbelievable how easy it is to fool the people of Indianapolis, actually. Uh, but man, like it's just it's a can't lose situation. Like I had talked about, before the match. Like, yeah, David Ali should. I honestly, I'm with you, Jim. I think that David Ali should forfeit the match and just send it via UPS over to my house over here in Illinois, a true and proper state.
Very true. I mean, how in the world did we ever end up right in between Indiana and Iowa, for crying out loud? It's just
And I
ridiculous.
used to I used to live in Iowa for a while, and I used to really like Iowa. But man, now that I've moved back to Illinois, I got to be honest with you, I can't believe that I ever left.
Well, I said the same thing about Kentucky when I came back here. It's it's just crazy how different some, the states touch each other and border each other, but yet it's like you're stepping into an entirely different time warp. Sometimes an entire different century, a different
Mhm.
country. You don't even know if you're still in the United States when you go into some of these places. And we're going to get in to some of those places here in a little bit. It just baffled me when I saw some of the similar areas that we've been through, me just through family and life, and you through being able to wrestle. And it was some towns that I've been in that would have made Ian Rotten envious of how small the venue was, or city was, that was tried to be run by some of these companies. So we've got a lot of that to talk about. But first, we're gonna start from the very, very beginning, like we do on most of my podcasts. And how did young Connor become interested in pro wrestling?
So, I got like compared to a lot of people that I talked to, I got into wrestling comparatively late. I was like probably 8 or 9 years old when I first started watching wrestling. Because I feel like all my friends are like, oh yeah, I was 3 or 4 when I first like my first memory of wrestling, and that was just not the case for me. But a friend introduced it to me, and this is okay. So this is I'm 8 in 2007, so it would have been like late 2007, and then early 2008 would have been kind of when I started watching, I think. Um, and I just remember only really knowing that WWE was the only thing. Um, that was all that I was aware of. And then slowly I found TNA through the same friend that had introduced me to WWE. But man, from the jump, my parents hated wrestling. So it was kind of me like having to sneak watch it all the time and like get the video games and stuff because, yeah, my parents just not fans of wrestling at all.
Well, I've told the story before for myself. I was 4 years old, so younger than what you talked about. But um, you sound sort of like my best friend that I grew up. Been best friends with this guy since we were 5 years old. So she's like 45 years now, and like 8, 9 was about the age that he was when I
Hmm.
introduced him to wrestling. And he he had just the WWF at that time,
Hmm.
that he sort of knew about. And then I introduced him to, you know, Crockett and some of the other. He never really got into world class and UWF, but he did start to enjoy WCW
Hmm.
before it officially became WCW. But he started watching the TBS stuff, and you know, you're it just makes me shudder when you sit there and talk about, you know, oh, in 2007, and I'm thinking I'm at the tail end of my IWA run there. I've already
Hmm.
checked out and had a foot out the door and was thinking about life after wrestling when you found wrestling,
Yeah.
and you were so young at that time. And you know I was already in the business when you were born. So it's it's crazy. Last week's guest was Prophet of Ash, and he
Hmm.
just kept filling my head with stats like that leading up to the shows last week, where he was telling me, so and so was only 3 years old when you quit the business, and it was only this and this, and you have no idea what you're in store for. And he wasn't wrong. It was quite shocking and quite different experience. Um, I shouldn't be shocked that wrestling shows in the year of our Lord 2026 are run a little differently than how Ian Rotten used to do things back in the day.
What?
Um,
No.
but okay, so you're like 8 years old. You get introduced to WW. I guess it was
It was E.
WWE at
Yeah.
by that point. It was already WWE. I'll never get used to saying WWE myself, but that's fine. Everybody has their different eras and generations that they come from. So
Mhm.
who does an 8-year-old boy being introduced to WWE for the first time? Who do you gravitate towards on those shows? I was not watching their
Yeah.
product at that point, so I couldn't even tell you like anything that was going on at that point. And I guess John Cena was that.
No, from the beginning, I was kind of so the first two that I remember really gravitating towards were The Undertaker and Jeff Hardy. Um, which I think, again, those are probably the two coolest guys to an 8-year-old boy that are possible. Um, but then I really started to gravitate in a way towards this guy who I hated at the time. Like I hated him as a character, because I was still bought in, but I couldn't not watch him and pay attention to him. And it was a gentleman by the name of CM Punk. He was world heavyweight champion around the time that I started watching. And yeah, again, he was a heel, so I straight up hated him. Didn't really know why, because I was too young to understand the whole straight edge thing. But I just knew that everyone else was booing him, so I was supposed to boo him too. Uh, and that was a guy that I really gravitated towards, even because I stopped watching. My parents like made me stop watching at a certain point, which I'm kind of glad that they did because, to be honest, revisiting a lot of this stuff does not hold up whatsoever. Uh, but yeah, so I fell out of it for a bit and then came back into it when I was like a freshman in high school. So basically, like while I was in junior high, I just didn't watch wrestling. And that's when I started to pick up, Ring of Honor TV when they were on Sinclair Broadcasting. I was watching a friend introduced me to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I kind of found out about what that was. And I started watching a lot more older stuff because the network had come out. And so now I had access to all of wrestling ever, or at least so I thought at the time, like on that network. And so Punk always remained a guy for me. Even while I was away, I would keep up to date with like kind of specifically what he was doing via social media. And then when I came back is kind of when it really exploded into a lot of the guys that I still am a big fan of today. Like that's when I first found out about like Adam Cole. That's when I really learned more about Tyler Black, when I learned more about Punk, from back in the day. A lot of these guys that, I look up to still kind of to this day. Um, which is no wonder then once I found IWA that I kind of parlayed into that quite a bit.
Well, I'll tell you, CM Punk. If if you would have if you would have went to me in an IWA Mid South locker room in say 2002, shortly after the Morris show,
Hmm.
and you would have said, "Who's the one person on the shows that you think could go on and become a huge star?" I would have said CM Punk because he had all the tools, but I also would have bet everything I owned, and shows how good of a gambler I am learning at the footsteps of Ian Rotten. I would have bet everything that he would have only lasted like 2 weeks in WWE, WWF, whatever,
Hmm.
I would have thought that within 2 weeks, he would have told Vince McMahon, shove it up your ass so goddamn far that you choke to death on it. And that he would have like had all the issues that he ended up having much farther down the road, but I couldn't, I was not the least bit surprised when it ended up happening, but I was totally flabbergasted that it took as long as it did. Um, because Punk was a lot attitude wise. Punk and I were very similar, and we were both straight edge. We both like just did not take shit off of anybody, and would speak our mind to our own detriment. And so I knew he had the talent to make it, but I did not think he'd be able to bite his tongue enough to last long enough to see that potential go through. So, he ended up proving me wrong and right and wrong and right and then wrong again. The Punk I thought I knew back then, I don't think ever would have ended up back where he's at now. Um, I think that bridge would have been so torched to the ground that it never would have been rebuilt. But you know, glad he's making his money.
Good for him.
Good for him. Glad he's making it. So you a
I've
lot of the,
described being a CM Punk fan over the years as being in an abusive relationship. Because man, as a fan, like especially growing up, he was somehow the only person simultaneously that you could love and love to hate. And it just like has never stopped going back and forth, at least in my wrestling fandom, because when he left, I was like, I got it, I understood, but it didn't stop me from being bummed out because now I was finally like, no, I understand how good you are now. Like, how could you possibly disappear? Like that last little bit of fandom was still really holding on to me, and he's like one of the last guys that's ever been able, to really hold my emotion like that.
it's the business is very different. He all the people that I came up with were on our way out. Or have already been long out, like I was long out. But it's luckily for me, I'm not doing the crazy bumps and stuff like that. So I have the ability to come back and have a second dance, sort of like what Punk's doing right now. So, it's he's doing it on a much grander scale and for a lot more money. So, great for him. But
But we're in it for the love of the game.
yeah, yes, for the love of the game. Great Kevin Costner movie. Highly suggest people watch it. It's very underrated. Very
Football movie,
underrated.
right? Yeah.
That one's baseball.
Baseball. Shows what I know.
Well, he's got the football movie Draft Day, another one that you know pretty much universally panned, but I actually like. Uh, I'll admit it. Makes the
Can
Cleveland Browns a winning franchise, which is laughable and not very believable. But otherwise, fine movie. I liked it. Gives Bears fans hope.
it it and if we have anything, we sure do have hope.
That we do. That we do.
Jim, so since we're getting to know each other, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Do you talk about movies much on this show? Because I'm always curious about specifically what people in wrestling like when it comes to movies.
I I mean, I'll answer questions like that. We've already talked more movies just by that little blurb there of mentioning For the Love of the Game and then Draft Day with Kevin Costner. But we can go into this because
Yeah,
it it does have some interesting points to it.
I think it's
Um,
important.
yeah. So me, if I'm watching a movie, 9 times out of 10, it's either got to be just a ridiculous comedy that I can just shut my brain off and just
Hmm.
laugh and be entertained, or it's got to be a mob movie, or it's got
Mm.
to be a sports movie of something that I like. Um, especially back when I was doing the IWA stuff and my brain was constantly trying to think of storylines and angles
Yeah.
and you know thinking about running a business, the last thing I want when I go into like would go into a theater or turn on a movie is don't make me overthink this. You know,
Okay, yeah.
I absolutely despise movies like Donnie Darko, movies like Fight Club, I hated. Vanilla
Really?
Sky, I hated. Like, don't sit there and have this convoluted, crazy ass shit that you then got to explain the last 5 minutes of the movie with like all these, oh, here's this big pulp fiction montage to walk you through all the stupid shit that you had to wade through at the beginning of the movie to sit there and tell you everything you just watched was wrong and this is how it really would, you know. And I hate The Wrestler. Absolutely hate that
Really?
damn movie.
Whoa. Okay, wait, let's talk about that. Okay, what's your beef with the wrestler?
Um, Most of the beef was that it was hitting too close to home, watching the
Yeah.
story and everything. And, you know, a lot of the people that had the extras and the cameos in the background, were all people that I knew.
Hmm.
And so I could like see them in those situations and it made it a little too real. But then it goes into that whole, you know, I paid you to watch your movie. Don't make me write your fucking movie for you. Show what the
Okay.
damn finish is. It's
Okay.
not, it's, I don't go to a movie to book my own finish and choose my own adventure at the end. And, oh, is this what happened? Is this what happened? Oh, did he die when he jumped off the top rope? Did he win?
What do you think
Did he
happened?
miss? I think I turned it off and said, God damn it, I just wasted 90 minutes, 2 hours of my life. You know, luckily it had Marissa Tomei in it, or else it would have been just absolutely worthless. I hate shit like that. Just
And Ernest the Cat Miller.
okay, yeah, I vaguely remember him being in it.
I
Vaguely,
believe he's in it.
very vaguely. I I I remember
I
Marissa Tomei and I remember the Necro Butcher. That's
Yeah.
that's what I remember from that movie.
Necro Butcher saying don't run me. Yeah. Man, so okay, so if you were to book the finish though, Randy the Ram comes off the top, what happens? What in your ideal movie ending, what happens?
Would shock people to hear this, but give me the babyface ending. You know,
Really?
I mean, 98% of movies, that's what you get. And so to me, it's like absolutely shocking when it doesn't happen, you know,
Hmm.
and so it's like it's hard to explain. Somebody would watch my wrestling character and know me in real life and think I would love something, and then it's just it. I hate it or whatever. There's like I won't watch Kiefer Sutherland in anything because there's this movie that Ian made me watch once that had Kiefer Sutherland as the heel in it, where he like raped this girl that was like mentally challenged, and Sally Field was like the mom, and like I think he gets off in the trial because there like wasn't enough evidence or something, and then he like stops and just talks shit to Sally Field to let her know that he did it, kind of thing. And I forget now what the hell the name of that, but he was such a rat bastard in that movie that I was like, I can't watch him in anything because I got so damn furious watching that movie and wanted to reach through the TV and just like rip his throat out that I was like, I can't watch you in anything because all I can see now is that character. But I can't
Is
remember
it
the
Eye
name of
for
the
an Eye?
Eye for an Eye. Yes, yes. Don't watch that movie if you don't want to just hate his gut. And I mean, I guess that shows just how good of an actor he was.
Yeah.
That he played such a convincing that I was like, I can't watch him in anything. And same with the dude in the Russell Crowe Gladiator movie,
Yeah.
the smarmy ass little
hmm Joaquin Phoenix, right?
yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, I can't watch him in anything because of how freaking pissed off he made me with the whole, oh, I'm gonna stab you in the back with this arrow before I fight you because I'm such a damn coward. And I'm like, oh, you sniveling little shit. And it's like, I think I get a lot of that from my dad because that's how my dad would watch a movie when I was growing up, and he would act like that, and I'd just be like, oh, and the both of us would be like, oh, I hate that guy, and then I get in a wrestling ring and portray all that stuff that I
Yeah.
couldn't stand and hate, and I'm like, maybe I channel it. Maybe that's why I do it so well. I don't know, but people probably have the same feelings about me. They'll see me and I could save a baby from a burning building or something, and they'd probably be like, well, he probably set fire to the damn building before he saved that damn baby. I don't trust him. And maybe they're right. I don't know, but yeah, it's so. I mean, if I was writing the ending to that movie, he hits he hits the ram jam, he wins, and he goes on and has like another 10-year run making some money and having a go of it. Maybe because that's what I want to see me be able to do with this second chance. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm looking at it that way. I don't know, but yeah, I watched that movie once and I'll never watch it ever again. I'm cue me up Marissa Tomei dancing in the strip club. I'll watch that part of the movie, but I'm not investing an entire, you know, 2 hours or whatever to watch that. And say like Sopranos,
What?
I've never watched The Sopranos on normally I would rewatch shows and movies that I love. I watch them 100 times.
Oh, but you
Never
have seen. Okay.
I've seen it, but I will never go back and rewatch it again because I was like, nope.
Once is good enough.
Invest 8 years into a show and then you make me book the finish. Nope,
You
not
got a real
doing it.
problem with the cliffhanger ending.
I mean, I'm fine with when a TV series does it and it's like, okay, wait 3 months until the show comes back on. But when it's the end, nope, don't do it. You gotta wrap that shit up.
Yeah, you got to book a finish.
So now that we've got a little sidetracked on that, hopefully people are still listening to this thing. We'll go. So you lapsed as a fan in junior high, got back into it when you got back into high school. Is that when you started seeing it as the potential of something to do, or were you still just a
Yeah.
casual fan at that point?
No, because I had really started doing more sports, throughout junior high and high school. And so I was a three-sport athlete by the time I got to high school and started realizing like just kind of what wrestling was outside of WWE because, again, growing up, I saw Undertaker, Big Show, Batista, John Cena, Mark Henry, like all of these guys who are gigantic, you know. And I have never been accused of being a gigantic man, even in high school, if you can believe it or not. And so, but it made me realize, like, outside of there, that there is a potential for, you know, people of a smaller stature. And also, like, there was a space because I was also a theater kid growing up all the time. So I had a bunch of theater experience. So, like, I could get up in front of a crowd, no problem. And I could do all of these sports and stuff. And so I really started to put it together and kind of like almost formulate a plan, you know? There wasn't really much in the way of wrestling in my area, at least when I was that age. I think the nearest uh indie show would have been either Funky Monkey in Sterling, which was 40 miles away, or Freeport, which was also close to 40 miles away. Um, so I was kind of, yeah, just in a desert and kind of had to source a lot of my own stuff. So, of course, I wrestled on the trampoline with a bunch of my friends, you know, in the backyard. Um, but yeah, really throughout high school, kind of started trying to figure out. I would show up like when a shindy would roll through Mount Morris, which is my hometown. Uh, I would go set up the ring and then try to train with them afterwards. So, like when I was 16, I was taking bumps from Mantar of all people in a really shitty ring, uh, like learning how to run the ropes and stuff. Yeah, it was just any wrestling experience that I could get, like before I turned 18, I was clamoring for.
Okay. Now you said three sports star in high school.
Hmm.
What were the three sports?
Football, wrestling, and track.
Okay. Because, I was looking at your profile on cagematch.net, which of course is a German website.
Hmm.
And, it's got your personal data. And I was looking at it earlier today and it's background in sports, football. Okay. I know what that is. Then it says ringen, which I don't know what that is. And then there's a word that I couldn't pronounce if you gave me 100 tries, like Takletik, which I guess must be track in German, I'm guessing. And yeah, okay.
If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, I guess.
Yeah,
Because yeah,
yeah.
I could tell you.
I was one of the things I was going to ask you is what in the hell is like I guess it ends and it looks like athletic at the end, so I'm going to guess that that was the track and field ish kind of stuff. So okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's a good
we'll go with that.
guess.
We'll go with that. I love those German websites.
Mhm.
But Cage, our WrestleArts is not on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Some WrestleArts shows of that you've done are on there, but the one we just did last week, not on there. And I didn't really see anywhere on there where I could like submit my own results to get it put up there for us. So
Page
you
Match
know,
is such a weird, magical website to me because I don't fully understand how it works, but I know that sometimes results go up on there, and sometimes they are really detailed, sometimes they are missing a lot of obvious things, and sometimes it's really scary because it's an outdoor show and they have times for like fair shows that I've done, which I didn't think we were even abiding by, like, I didn't think anyone was keeping time, you know?
right.
So I don't understand how cage match works in the slightest.
Me neither. I have no idea. I know there's a couple of people that will message me that they're all from overseas,
Hmm.
and they'll be like, "Oh, I've, most of the stuff on there that says, with Jim Fannin was put there by me," and I'm like, "Well, thank you for that, but there's an awful lot that are missing." It's got that. I think on my profile, it's got that I've managed like 13 people, and I'm like, times that by like four.
I was
Um,
gonna say, like, I was looking at, yeah, your cage match and that versus the graphic, the awesome Fannin Family tree graphic. Yeah, there's quite a few missing.
yeah, which it was very difficult when I was trying to put that to have James Christopher put that design together, and me and Manawa are you know pouring through 1,000 results of IWA
Yeah.
shows, and not every show's there. Not in say not there's ones
Yeah.
where I'm like, I know that I was there and managed so and so on that show, but doesn't say it on there, and it's like
We
I
need someone to take up the Herculean task of going through and putting in all of the correct IWA Mid-South results. You know, really
well
ironing that out on Cage Match.
most people I don't know if there's anybody that would be able to do it because there's so many of the early stuff wasn't recorded. There's no like
Just
written
no record.
results anywhere. There's no way of really knowing. And yeah, there's some IWA results on there where it's just got like one match listed, and I'm like, ain't no way Ian Rotten ran a show with only one match on it. That ain't happening. Oh goodness, yeah. But it's a great website. Just wish that slight beggars can't be choosers, but it would be nice if there was a little bit more information on there. So you said that you're going to Shindy's and you mentioned Mount Morris,
Yes.
which is different than my Morris.
Yes.
How
Correct.
far how far apart are those two places? Because I've never been to Mount Morris.
I would hazard to guess an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe apart.
Okay.
They're maybe 100 miles or so, maybe 180. But yeah, it's further from LaSalle. It is where I'm at now. It's north and then it is west. It's kind of over in Ogle County in the northwest portion.
Okay.
But, hmm.
Because I would always remember growing up and would get out the atlas and be looking, trying to find, oh, well, how many Morrises are out there? And it would be like, well, what is this Mount Morris doing? And,
Yes.
you know,
Mount Morris with a very flat elevation, believe it or not.
so not much of a mount.
Not much of a mount at all, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not not all that surprising in Illinois. It's not a mountainous state, really. So,
Not exactly known for, yeah, the terrain.
but you said Mantar ended up making his way through
Yes. So,
in teaching young Connor some tricks and trades of the business, huh?
uh, if you count him standing in the ring and holding his arm out, and then having us run into it and bumping, uh, as teaching us tricks of the trade, then yes.
Okay.
I learned early on kind of how to bump or at least fall down from Mantar, because he would get upset when you didn't do it right, and then he would just start swinging at you.
He was a big boy, so
Yeah,
he probably did not. You probably did not want him swinging at you
it
at
didn't feel
that
good.
point. No.
No.
Okay. So
But yeah. So that was my first taste of like a true independent show was that. Like going to see that, there are 40 people in a gymnasium watching this show with guys who are not great. Uh, and that's nothing again, they're all working on their craft and whatever, but man, just now that I know kind of what the business is, knowing that experience, a little surreal. Like I definitely should not have been doing that.
and probably did not sign any waivers.
No,
Probably
no, no waivers.
they
Uh,
probably weren't like thoroughly checking your background to see how much experience you had before letting you in there.
I told him I had none. They let me in anyway. But the guy, I remember distinctly, the newspaper ad said $35. And then I showed up, and then he asked me for $50, and I said, "But sir, the ad said 35." And I wasn't old enough to like have a debit card or, money to have. Like this was just that was the amount of cash that I had.
Sounds like the perfect wrestling show. Uh,
Hmm.
what company was this? Do you remember?
This was MWA, Midwest Wrestling Association, or something generic like that. I don't even know where they're out of, like where they came from. I think a lot of them said that they were Nebraska guys, but I was like, why is this promotion coming to Illinois then? Like, it was weird.
And in such a small area, everybody everybody would make so much fun of Ian for running all these podunk ass Indiana towns. And then, you know, if you get on a cage match and start looking around, and that is independent professional wrestling
Yep.
in the United States. Every state you're sitting there looking at, there's some independent group that's just running nowhere. And
Hmm.
you're like, how is this even a town? So
Which, speaking of which, that's kind of how I started getting into training then, was because, like, I don't know, growing up in small town Illinois, it's still kind of like you're 20 years behind a little bit. And so it was like, there wasn't like a social media page, or anything. There wasn't a website. It was a kid that I went to high school with and played football with, was training to be a wrestler at this place, uh, 40 miles from my house in Sterling, Illinois, and asked me if I wanted to come start training because he knew that I like wanted to do it and was trampoline wrestling or whatever. Uh, and so yeah, that was like, he was like, you just have to wait till you're 18. So I waited till the week after I graduated from high school, and then I started over at Zowa, Zowa, in based out of Sterling, Illinois.
okay, and we'll get into them in a little bit when we have a shared town that we
Uh-huh.
have been in that we talked about off air. Um, so you're training with this group. How how long do you train with them?
So I spent a summer with them 3 times a week. So yeah, about 3 months, and then I had to go to college because my parents were like, I was lying to them at first and saying that I was going to the gym and working out, and I was going to be at the gym for 5 hours today, uh, because I had to cover that I was driving an hour each way. Uh, and so yeah, finally though, I fessed up to it like at the end of the summer. I was like, I've been doing wrestling stuff. Do you want to come watch, this little exhibition thing, whatever? But they were fine with it as long as I went to college and got good grades. So I did that. I joined the track team while I was in college, so that kind of occupied a lot of my time the first couple of years. But I would sneak back home any chance that I got and would go train with them, and just kind of hang out at shows and see what's going on.
And I see they ran all over any town that had a stop sign,
Yeah.
or any kind of a venue. So one of the one of the places that you wrestled with them, Oregon, Illinois.
Yeah.
So you might think, because not a hardly nobody listening to this podcast is going to have any idea where in the hell Oregon, Illinois is at.
No chance.
But you would think that it took the name of a state, a fairly decent sized state at that,
Hmm.
might be a big place, but no,
No,
not at
actually,
all.
not at all.
Not at all. So my experience with Oregon, Illinois, as I was telling you, and again, wrestling character, I'm the dastardliest, dastardliest of
Hmm.
bad guys. But senior year of high school, I'm was gung ho that I was going to be a lawyer when I grew up, by golly. And so I joined my cousin, and we joined the police cadets in Morris when I was in high school. And so, we're directing traffic at the carnival. We're, you know, learning how to, you know, become a cop and what kind of classes to take in college to get into law and order. And one weekend, we end up going to Oregon, Illinois for, we would had these competitions with other police cadet teams from other towns in Illinois. And we had pellet guns, and we would go and to like shooting ranges and have these competitions. And I ended up had to go to Oregon, Illinois. And I was telling you, we went to the police station since we were police cadets. We were going to go and like meet at the police station hours 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And this was a Saturday. So you'd had to go inside, like you could go into the lobby and then you'd have to pick up a phone and it was set to dial to like the police captain's house to tell him that there was somebody that was in need of the police after hours in Oregon, Illinois. So it's ringing to his house, and he's like, "Well, I could be there in 5 minutes, and give you the grand tour if you're really wanting to look around." And Sergeant Davies like, "Well, sure, I'd love to meet you." So this poor guy had to drive 5 minutes to come and open up the police station, so us police cadets could go and like look around before we went. And I ended up like getting a marksman medal at the little competition or whatever. But just struck me, we're driving, and I was telling you, it was literally, we are on this like state highway. We see the sign that says "Welcome to Oregon."
Mm-hmm.
We got to a stop sign. We went through the stop sign. We passed the barn, and there was a sign for the next town. And we were like, where the hell did Oregon go? It was just a barn. And so it wigged me out when I seen that, Connor Hopkins
Oh yeah.
multiple times had wrestled in Oregon, Illinois. And I'm like, I wonder if it was at that barn that I passed.
So there is a little bit more to Oregon now. And so yeah, we wrestled there. It was actually a pretty cool venue. It was in a sandwich shop over there in Oregon, Illinois, of all places, in like this back venue of a sandwich shop. And we had a 12 by 12 pony ring that we would wrestle in there, and we had to turn it sideways to fit it between the four columns that were in the middle of the room. So if you hit the ropes too hard on it dead in the middle, you would bounce into a column or a post of the building. Yeah, it was an awesome venue. We were all crammed. The amount of people like that you could cram into that tiny locker room back there, it made the walls sweat. I'm sure you know yeah, like oh yeah. It was gross, and no air conditioning. Like it's hot in there. Um, those early, yeah, but like the crowds were awesome. The We would sell it out all the time, and like even though it's not a lot of seats, like still being able to say that you sold out a room,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So, by God, we sold out Oregon, Illinois.
Yeah. And now we're doing that with Nelson now. They're running a bunch in Nelson, Illinois, which is an even smaller town. And they
Smaller than Oregon.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah, so it's fun. I love like that's kind of how I learned how to wrestle was wrestling in front of small town crowds all the time. 'Cause like you gotta really have something that they want to see, otherwise they do not care whatsoever.
Well, that's sounds an awful lot like the Charlestown, Olynyk,
Hmm.
Terre Haute, all the Rensselaer,
Yeah.
all those Plymouth, Indiana, all kinds of IWA towns through the years. And yeah, you had to work your ass off to get those fans to enjoy it and want to see it. And so you're you're wrestling for now. Is it called Zawa? Is it
Yeah, so Zawa Live is
Zawa
the
Live? Okay.
yeah. It started as just the training school and then started running events. And actually is going on like 10 years now, which is weird to say because I'm getting to the point now where I can say, I've been there almost since the beginning.
Wow. Well, you know, time catches up with all of us.
hmm
Catches up with all of us. So then when did you start branching out and go into other companies running even smaller places?
So I really started branching out in 2019. I was a couple years in. I had quit the track team by that point in college and was now like at that point kind of dedicating more of my weekends to trying to travel. And so I was going to school in northern Iowa at the time and got hooked up with a promotion in La Crosse, Wisconsin, called RCCW up there. And so that was kind of the first promotion outside of Zawa that I ever worked for. Um, and then from there, uh, a few years later, I did just mainly Zawa and RCCW and then was going to school um, for the 2 years after that. And then the pandemic happened, but I was really trying to just travel kind of, I was traveling a lot with like my friends, my trainer and my friends who were already on the road. So kind of wherever they would go, but mostly sticking there until I started working in Minnesota uh, in 2021-ish. And then that's kind of really when I started being a lot more places.
So when did you get hooked up with North Dakota? And what was that? Time Bomb, I think.
Yeah, Time Bomb Pro. Um, yeah, so Eric, the promoter up there, saw me at a show in Minnesota and hit me up, and so I was up there. I started in August of 22 up there in Fargo, North Dakota, is where they run. But they also do a lot of stuff. They started really branching out, which was a lot of fun. So, like you mentioned, Jamestown, North Dakota, which is it's the closest, or no, it's close to the farthest, but I think the farthest I've ever been up north, at least, is Crookston, Minnesota, which is another hour north of Jamestown.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but Jamestown, North Dakota, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, talk about liking to miss it.
I could not believe when I saw that on the list of places that you had wrestled, and I was telling you, my grandmother,
hmm
born raised in the holler of Vanceburg, Kentucky, and two of her sisters met brothers. And now this is 1940s Kentucky, and as I told you, not their brothers, brothers from a different family, but my grandma's two sisters married two brothers that they were not already related to, even though it was 1940s Kentucky. And at that point, the government was giving away land in North Dakota, trying to get people to go there. So if you just went, you could like claim farmland,
Oh, wow.
almost like you were like Christopher Columbus or Pizarro or Bolivar or any of the other, you know, conquistadors and explorers from, the 1500s that you learned about in history class. You could just go out to North Dakota and claim land, and the government would give it away just to get you out there to farm it and live on it. So these brothers married my grandma's sisters. They went out there and started a family in Jamestown, North Dakota, and they would come to Morris and visit us every once in a while, and they would always say I could come spend a summer working on their farm, and that just never ended up happening.
Yeah.
And
What a
but
what
but
a
but
surprise.
I had family there while they were alive, and you know had a chance that I could have went to Jamestown, North Dakota, and maybe found wrestling there before I found IWA. Who knows?
I don't know if there's much of anything going on in Jamestown. I mean, they have a Walmart, so they got to be doing all right for themselves. But man, Man alive. Yeah, no, you want to talk about barren nothingness. I feel like we kind of complain about the Midwest a lot. I would consider North Dakota just on your way to absolute nothing, like for miles.
Yeah, I told you, one of my things I'm trying to do is get to every state. Not been to North Dakota yet. We did. The wife and I went to South Dakota a
Hmm.
few years ago and ended up going to Mount Rushmore, and I thought that that was a drive of nothing, going
Yeah.
all the way across South Dakota at night,
Ooh.
to get there, and like just pitch darkness,
Yeah.
nothing but wall drug billboards every 10 feet saying, follow the 12 trillion billboards to wall drug before you get to Mount Rushmore. And we did. We followed
Did
the
you go to
billboard.
Waldrug?
We went to wall drug. I think
Oh, good.
my wife has a couple of cups that she bought from wall drug. I think we got like a magnet from from wall drug. And, but I was like sitting there contemplating it. I was like, okay, on the way home, maybe swing up and maybe just clip North Dakota so I could say that
Just so
we're
you could
like
say.
we're just so I could say that okay, North Dakota's off the list, and did not did not do it. So now I'm gonna have to find my way out there at some
Yeah.
point. But
You have to
is
check out
Time
Time
Bomb
Bomb Pro.
still in business? Are they
Yeah.
still running? They're still
Oh, yeah.
running. So you know maybe that's a place that I
Yeah.
try to add to the list at some point when I'm.
I did lose an I Quit match up there, so we may have some negotiating to do if we wanna get back up there. But yeah, Time Bomb Pro is a good time.
Well, it's how long. This is wrestling. The
Yeah.
stipulations don't stick. Uh, if it's been a while, the people ain't gonna remember. Come back as I'll manage the Yellow Dog or the Midnight Rider or
There we go. Yeah. Come back with a
the
mask.
the machine. The I mean, you're the Purdy Hate Machine.
There we go.
You
Yeah.
got it. You
Just put a
got it
mask
right.
on.
Just put a mask on, and we're all good. And then I told you also, not not as little because it's a college town, but Macomb, Illinois, with my
Yeah.
wife's family. She was impressed that she couldn't believe that there was wrestling in Macomb, and you'd been on a show there and wrestled there, and
Oh yeah.
that's where her dad grew up, and they still have a farm down there. So
Oh wow. Yeah, Macomb. Destination 6 Wrestling down there in Macomb. Uh
is that for the six people that are
yeah.
in Macomb?
Yeah.
We
They run out of a church that they own. That's like they've converted into their own wrestling like amphitheater. And they have their own custom six-sided ring in there too.
Wow.
It's yeah, it's wild.
So they're the opposite of Houston. They put a church to wrestling instead of a church putting wrestling into a church.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Now I've got fodder for the next trip to the in-laws to
There you go.
tell the father-in-law that not only is the wrestling down there, but in a church.
It's in a church.
In a church. My last time actually in Macomb was for my wife's grandfather's funeral, and we went to the Ponderosa afterwards. Was like where the meal was for the family get together after the funeral. And as we're driving from the cemetery to the Ponderosa, like 15 cops pass us and go flying by, and we're like, well, that's weird for Macomb. What's going on?
Yeah.
And we pull into the Ponderosa, and maybe 5 minutes later, all the cops come to the door and say, no one's allowed to leave the Ponderosa. There's a shooter in the Farm King that's barricaded himself into the Farm King, so no one can. And it was like in the same parking lot. So they were like, no one can leave the Ponderosa. And where you're like, is this a rib that grandpa's playing on every, and everybody's complaining, and I'm like, fuck, I'm trapped in a Ponderosa. I'm in heaven. What are
I
you
don't
talking about? Can't think of a better place to be
know.
stranded in Macomb than the Ponderosa. And you know, they kept serving us the food, so it
Hey,
was
well, there you go.
fine. But
You know, at least the
and
service.
I'm sure the Ponderosa is probably out of business now, but because that was eons ago. But
I was gonna say, does Ponderosa still exist?
I don't think they do. It's sad, sad. You had talked about the pandemic. I think the pandemic wiped out
Yeah,
like the few Ponderosas that
the
remained
last of the
got the
Ponderosas.
last of the Ponderosas got killed by the pandemic. But you found something during the pandemic.
That is true. So, yeah, as we get locked down, I'm a junior in college. And so I'm a young, angry 22-year-old locked in his parents' basement uh, for the better part of a few or several months. And IWTV at that point was kind of really getting its feet underneath of it and was doing a lot of cool stuff. So that's when they really started like live streaming all sorts of different stuff, not just, a select few live events. And they announced this big thing that they were going to be airing night one of the 2004 Ted Petty Invitational. Uh, while we were in lockdown, I want to say it was like May of 2020 or something. They were just like, yeah, here you go. And so I remember setting a calendar notification to make sure that I watched it because I just looked at the lineup and didn't want to look at anything else and saw all of these incredible names uh, and was like, how have I never heard of this before? Like, and man, I sat down and I watched it on my laptop. I remember like I couldn't take my eyes off. I was just like transfixed by the full 3.5 hour broadcast, 4 hours, however long it was. I sat there and literally like did nothing but watch.
And that was night one.
That's correct. Night one. Uh 20 matches. uh but man, and then they didn't I remember that they weren't gonna air night two originally. They were just gonna show night one as part of like their random block of programming. And then it I guess must have done such great numbers that like it announced, okay, a couple weeks from now, yeah, we're running it back, night two. So I remember that the in between of like watching those two was so agonizing because it wasn't on IWTV yet. Like these were like the premieres of these shows.
Right.
And so I remember however long the wait was, just being like, oh my, like genuine excitement about wrestling, from 15 years ago at that point, 16 years ago at that point, like, and then same thing, I sat down and watched the whole thing. And then it felt like, man, every week for weeks on end, I was just rewatching the full show, like both nights, like all 8 hours of wrestling, whatever, as often as I could. And it just kind of like, became kind of a comfort thing a little bit, it was like my comfort wrestling show for a little bit. But also like, man, it just, as a wrestler myself, I really became so drawn to it because it was such an excellent display of what wrestling was at the time and also what wrestling was going to be in the years following. Um, and man, I think that like it would have been hard to fully appreciate in the moment, and I would like to get your thoughts on that. But with the benefit of hindsight, again, it's been however long these guys have made their names, in those 15 years. It was crazy to go back and watch. That kind of felt like hidden information, and that's what led me to discover IWA Mid-South in the first place.
Yeah. It in real time, we knew it was something special. We knew that we had put together probably the craziest collection of independent talent under one roof for a tournament.
Hmm.
Um, and that was like what was being strived for at that point. And I don't think I know as great as I knew the lineup was, I couldn't have imagined the impact that that lineup would have on the business going forward when you look at the names.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at some of the people that were in the crowd watching it, another one that comes to mind like that was the 1997 King of the Death matches
Mm-hmm.
that IWA did. Um, for the people of my generation
Mm-hmm.
and like all of my friends, we go back and rewatch that show, and it's like you would die from alcohol poisoning if you took a drink every time you saw somebody in the crowd that went on to become a major part of IWA.
Yeah.
Um, because that was the breeding ground for what really got us from 2000 to 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That that was born at the 97 King of the Death matches. And without that 97 King of the Death matches going on in Louisville, Kentucky, I mean, that gave life to there being a CZW, that gave life to like so much of what was going to happen in that very early first few years of the 2000s and carry into the the new millennium.
Mm-hmm.
It was so important. And then I feel the 2004 Ted Petty was the same way going forward. And just the amount of guys that went on to hold titles in major promotions, there was like, I can't remember the year, but I remember on social media, I think it was Punk and a couple other guys like posted a photo after one of the WWE shows, and like every champion was an IWA guy at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and they posted the photo and was like,
Yeah.
long way from the Charlestown barn, or Clarksville. It's a to there. And then I think it might have happened in Japan, but like WWF did the main event from did the 2004 finals happened in a WWF ring, like not on a paper, but I think it might have been a house show in like
Yeah.
Japan or something, where they were like, fuck it, let's run back that, let's do that match because and it just wild.
Yeah.
So I think I've got the page called up here. So just to hit some of these names, you've got Petey Williams, Brian Danielson, Alex Shelley, Claudio Castagnoli, Nigel McGuinness, Samoa Joe, Roderick Strong, Jimmy Rave, AJ Styles, Chris Hero, Mike Quackenbush. You got Jimmy Jacobs and Delirious not even in a
Mm-hmm.
tournament match. It's CM Punk, Austin Aries, Chris Sabin, Matt Seidel. I mean, I'm pretty sure all of those guys had a major run
Mm-hmm.
in like in at least WWE. And I think at one point
Yeah.
there was like, because I think it was like Claudio was a champion, Punk was a champion, Seidel was like a tag
Mm-hmm.
champ, and
Danielson, I think, was
I
champion
forget
at this
who
time.
all it was. I forget who all it was in this photo, And I'm sure Manawa's probably got it saved somewhere, I would imagine. But it's like five, six guys, and they were all came through IWA at one point, and
Yeah.
we're like, this is the I think maybe Seth Rollins was in the photo too. So not he was in the crowd at that show, not in that he was in the I think he
Oh,
made the
really?
I think he was in it the next year. Um but yeah, I think him and Merrick were in the crowd watching the 2004 one, and it just a crazy night, crazy 2 nights,
Yeah.
because and I didn't even mention like got Eric Cannon, Super Dragon.
It's legitimately it's the most for my money it's the most stacked independent show maybe of all time. Especially when you look at the sustained drawing power of everyone like we were talking about. I mean like not to spoil a 20 plus year old event for everyone, but the finals of the entire tournament uh is three of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Like I would argue you can't really, from an objective standpoint, AJ Styles, Bryan Danielson, and Samoa Joe as a triple threat is it is insane to me. Like it's inspired booking. Like the whole tournament to me is booked so well. And I don't know if that's on purpose or if that's on accident, but I don't know. There's other than it being a very long 2 nights, it flows really well.
It's so damn long. And you said it's the footage is like 8 hours. So then
Hmm.
imagine with like the downtime and the intermissions and the stuff that's cut from
Hmm.
the DVDs, how long those nights were. And like one of my favorite stories, and I'm sure it's been told but you're gonna have to hear it again. People, if you've listened to every episode, you're just gonna have to listen to this one again. I go pick up Chris Candido for night two because he's as Manawa has mentioned before, there was always a surprise. And so I got to be the one to deliver the surprise night two of TPI. And it was one of my favorite moments of my career. One, that Chris Candido even remembered who the fuck I was. Because I've told this story on the podcast where I had met Candido had come in and done shows in like 2001.
Hmm.
Maybe it was January of like 2002, but it'd been 2 3 years since I'd seen him, and he was not in the best of conditions that first go round.
Hmm.
And it wasn't even at an IWA show, it was at like a convention when so Rich Wayne and I talked about it on the episode that Rich Wayne did. We had went, it was supposed to be Cal Ripken's last game. So it was right around the time of the Twin Towers, 9/11. And of course, Ian Rotten, the biggest Cal Ripken fan in the world, named his kid John Calvin because of Cal
Hmm.
Ripken, had the Cal Ripken tattoo on him. And sidebar story, we met Cal Ripken not at this trip, but we had ended up getting front row tickets to a Baltimore Orioles game at Camden Yards on a trip to Baltimore one time, where we just walked up to the box office day of the game. What's your best tickets? And they were like, we just got front row that opened up. And we're like, we'll take it. And so Cal's would sign for about everybody. And he's going around, and all Ian has to get signed, because we never thought we'd get front row. We never thought we'd get anywhere close to Cal Ripken to even be able to talk to him. And Ian takes his Orioles hat off that he's wearing, and couldn't even talk. He was so starstruck, and he's just like da 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 da, and he's and so like Cal's got it, and he signs it and gives it back, and he moves to like the next person over, and I'm like, dude, ask him to like make it out to John Calvin, like, personalize it. So then he finally like can talk a little bit, and he was like, sorry, Cal, I named I named my son after you. Can you like add the inscription? And Kyle's like, sure. And he comes over, and that's when he sees the tattoo, and he was like, holy shit, did that hurt? And Ian's like, no. And then he's like looking at Ian's head, and he's like, yeah, I guess it wouldn't hurt if you're like, he's like, what the hell happened to you? And he's like, oh, hardcore wrestler. And he's like, okay, well, what's your son's name? And he's like, John Calvin. And he's like, oh, that's a great name. And so he like adds to John Calvin and writes it on the hat or whatever and gives it back. Well, like 5 years later, we're at a sports card show that Cal is at. And
Mhm.
Ian has taken John Calvin to go get an autograph and meet Cal Ripken. And we get up to Cal Ripken in line, and he looks up and sees Ian's forehead, and he goes, still got the tattoo, I take it? And Ian shows him the tattoo, and he looks and he goes, so you must be John Calvin. And we were like, holy fuck, how the
Whoa.
fuck does he remember this shit? And so then he like decides to play a little game, and John Calvin's like just a kid, and rambunctious, rowdy little shit. And so Cal's like, oh, give me five. And he moves his hand. It like goes, oh, you're too slow, John Calvin. And we stopped breathing because we were waiting for like John Calvin to be like, fuck you, motherfucker. And just like ready to just go after him kind of deal. We're like, holy shit, holy shit. And it was just like an unbelievable moment. But say that, had to tell that story to then, we got Chris Candido. We're at this convention in Philadelphia. We still got to go to like New York to go to what was supposed to be Cal's last game, but they canceled like 2 weeks of the season when 9/11 happened. So it didn't end up being his last game, but we still went because we're like, well, this is our chance to go to Yankee Stadium. So we go to this game, and so we end up taking Candido and Tammy home to Atlantic City on our way to go on up to New York. And like Tammy's falling out of her dress, and they're sitting behind you, like she's all I can see in the rearview mirror of the car is like her falling out of her dress, and we're in these back dark ass roads in the middle of nowhere trying to get to their place, and I can't see at night. So I'm like just swerving all over the road trying to get the only views of, naked Tammy that I thought I would ever get. I didn't know that she was going to, become a damn porn star and fart and whatever on video and all everything else. So, I'm like sitting there trying to catch a peek, and I'm driving all over the place. And Candido's like, you drive like shit. And when I pull up to pick him up at the airport the second day of the TPI, he's like, the first things out of his mouth is, have you learned how to drive yet? And I'm like, how the fuck do you remember that with the condition that you were in? But, it must have stuck in his mind that I'm like, trying to catch a peek of his wife or something. But, you know, couldn't believe that he remembered that, and I'm like, this is so great. And he's just wound tighter than I don't know what.
Mm.
And he's just bouncing off. He can't wait. He gets to the building, and he's like, oh, and Ian's like, you're a surprise. You got to stay hidden. You are a surprise. And like the show's going on, and we had to change the lineup because he was, Ian Steve Stone was not supposed to be like so early in the show. Let me look at this lineup here.
Really?
They ended up going on third because
Yeah.
Candido is bouncing off the walls in the back, and he's like, Ian, you gotta let me out there. You gotta let me out there. I can't stay back here. And Ian's like, dude, you've worked for me before. This is the first time sober, man. This is the first time sober. I can't stay back here. I can't stay back here. I'm bouncing off the walls. You're driving me crazy. I got to get out there. And he's like, we could not keep him. We could not keep him calm. And he's just spazzing out. And he's like, you're driving me crazy. I can't stay back here all night. I can't stay back here all night. Somebody's got to have a hood. Somebody's got to have a mask. Somebody give me a fucking mask so I can go sit in the damn concession stand and watch this show. I got to watch this show. I got to see these guys. And he's just going crazy. So we had to like move up everything just so we could get to his spot earlier. So then he could sit and like not just be cooped up in the damn locker room and everything. So, I mean, he
wastes no time either, because between the surprise happening and the point that he jumps on commentary for the show,
it was immediately. and I mean, it was like we could not keep him under control. He's like, look at all this talent. I gotta see. I want to watch this. And he's like, just put me in a mask. Just let me like, no, got it. But the response from the crowd, and it just worked so perfect. I'm running, getting chased around the ring, and then I run out the side door, and then like Ian can't get the door. And then when he finally gets the door, boom, there's Candido. And
it's Chris Candido.
And it's Chris freaking Candido. And the crowd just goes ape shits. And then we had to move everything up. Like I said, we moved everything up. So like the baby faces didn't know. And so they all missed their cue. So we're out there fucking killing Ian for like 20 minutes. And we're like sitting there going, Jesus fucking Christ. The whole time we're sitting there going, holy fuck, is anybody going to come out here and save you? And he's like, I mean, should you guys we're like trying to book it on the fly. And we're like, do we just leave? Do we just leave? I mean,
it is an uninterrupted beatdown for a while.
A long ass, and like Patty's the only one out there trying to stop it. We're like, and I'm ready to leave. I'm like, I ain't fucking with Patty. Patty will whoop my ass. And Candido's like, not until babyface, not until, because he didn't know that Patty was like the biggest goddamn babyface of the company. It's like be careful now. But then like the promo that he cut in the back when he just grabs Tim the Tool Man and like pitches him out of the, and he's laying on the ground and he's like, I ain't finished, I ain't done. And I was like, oh, it was so great to just, such a thrill to have that run with him. And that whole night was just perfection. And so that is always what I am going to remember about the 2004 Ted Petty. But it's like, as big a star as Candido was, as many places as he'd been around the world, and as important as he was to like me and so many of the guys that were on the show, he's like just a footnote. It hardly ever mentioned because of like the star power and what they went on to do at the 2004. Like, it's a hell of an investment of time.
Yeah.
But anybody that hasn't watched it, or if you have not watched it in 22 years, jump on to IWTV, watch Fannin's Flashbacks on IWTV, and then go and watch TPI. I really wish that they had more of the old IWA stuff from my era on and ready to go.
Yeah.
But they just don't. And I think it's a missed opportunity, but they're letting us use that footage and being able to insert. So, that we're getting that footage digitalized, and that's why it's taking Prophet of Ash so long to try. Like, these episodes aren't, one, we were already 20 episodes in, and these episodes go forever because I don't shut up. And it's such an amazing 8 hours.
The remastered edition.
Go watch it.
The remastered edition is on IWTV. It's the first thing that comes up when you select IWA Mid-South. I recommend it highly, highly, highly. I have been fortunate enough to watch it the way it was intended to be viewed, which is on VHS. Uh, yeah, double VHS pack. Yeah, taped together. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had to hook up a projector to a VCR, a whole thing, but it was yeah, I watched it the way the Lord intended on VHS.
There you go.
And I actually recently found out a fun bit of trivia. I was on a show with Spider Nate Webb, um, another friend of the show.
Not
Uh,
anymore. Not anymore. Not after the shit he pulled at Black Label Pro. And I'll say it right now. Brett Lauderdale, if you're watching this podcast for some unknown reason, or it gets to you, I challenge Nate Webb on any of your shows. Connor is going to get my revenge. Connor is
Yeah.
going to beat Nate Webb's ass for stepping in and ruining the damn moment I waited 21 years for. And Nate Webb comes out and pulls an Eddie Guerrero and freaking makes me have a loss. The one time I finally get to manage Mickey Knuckles, and it's a damn loss because of Spider Nate Webb, who was on my damn podcast, thought he was a friend, and then he pulls that shit. So
Can't trust anybody in the wrestling biz.
cannot trust anybody.
Mm-mm. I'll kick his ass for you, Jim. Don't you worry. I'll if I ever get
That's
the chance. Here's my open challenge to Spider Nate Webb, anytime,
There
any
you
place.
go. Make it happen, Brett Lauderdale. Make it happen.
But before he became an enemy of the podcast, we were talking, and I found out that he made the Stabbing Westward highlight video at the beginning, which is pretty awesome. It's so of the time. It's one of the things that I think indie wrestling is missing more of. Is we need more grainy highlight footage set to emo music from the early 2000s. I think that's what really needs a comeback in pro wrestling.
I might have to go back and watch. I'm not.
You
I
watched
don't.
the opening video
I don't
package.
remember that one. I do know that I am a huge fan of the one that Robles put together for War Games,
Mm-hmm.
IWA War Games with, and I showed that to some people at my shoot job, and they literally fell out of their chair when my picture pops up and the guy is just going evil, 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 and they were like, oh, they know you, and I'm like, shut your mouth. But that one was a pretty good one. And then every once in a while, I'll hear that, like, I don't even know if it's a song or just a voiceover or whatever it is. I end up hearing that every once in a while out in the wild. I forget where I was at the other day, but it was like on an ad or on something that I was watching, and I was like, "Holy crap! They're hyping War Games for me." But
But yeah, I mean, so this show, like, what from your perspective? So night one, you're in the main event. It's you managing BJ Whitmer against Petey Williams. Um, and you get into this fight with a fan
is
in
that
live.
actually on the tape?
Yes, it
So the
remains on the remastered version.
Oh, it remains on there too. Okay.
Yeah, which I'm very glad because it's good heat. It's awesome.
It What I remember of it, especially like, and I've said it on here, like, I do not take shit from anybody, fan, New Jack, whatever. I not taking shit. And like the thing that would just raise my ire on those IWA shows, and so some of the fans grabbed onto it and just like turned it up to 11 on the volume control, is they would do the I bought my way onto the show and
Mm.
didn't earn it. And they would like throw that at me and like I don't care what people say to me. I don't. I mean, I've had IWA crowds. The very first time I took any of my family, I took two of my younger cousins to whatever Simply the Best it was that was right around this time of year,
Mhm.
because it was Easter Eve, and friggin' I think I'm hitting the ring at like 1:30 in the morning officially on Easter, and my little cousins are in the crowd, and there's a strong contingent of the IWA crowd wishing death upon me on Easter. And my cousins after the show were like, are they really going to try to kill you? And I'm like, they might. Just I told them before the show, I was like, do not tell anybody that you're my family, or they might do something to you. And so when that happened, they were like, oh my god, we thought you were just kidding with us. And they were like, oh my god, oh my god. And so then they went and they had to tell everybody in the damn family at Easter the next day, like, oh, they were going to kill him. And it's like, well, I don't really think they were going to kill me, but you know yeah, they
It's
said some mean things to me. And so I mean, like, I don't really care, but that, for whatever reason, that one just always got to me, because and I think I've talked about it on podcasts, like, nobody hates me more than I hate me. I'm constantly my biggest critic,
Mhm.
and I hate anytime I do something wrong, or what, I beat the hell out of myself over it. And you know one of the biggest obstacles to this comeback, especially the week and a half leading up to the two shows last week, was that imposter syndrome kicking in. And especially with as long as I was out. And I'm like, you know, can I do this? Do I still have it?
Yeah.
Fuck, did I ever have it? And then it would
Yeah,
be,
baby.
like these thoughts of like this guy coming back into my head, I didn't earn it. I didn't earn it. I bought my way on. And, funny that you would even bring up the thing, because I was just on Facebook earlier today, and there was like one of the deathmatch guys that had done IWA in the past. I'm not going to mention his name, but he like made this post where he was complaining that evidently somebody in the deathmatch scene is using their own money to get better opponents for themselves on shows. And like all these people in the deathmatch scene were just flipping out about it. And oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening. And, name names. Who is this son of a bitch? And how dare he not earn his spot? And he going to buy it and all this other. And I'm like, every booker that was also a wrestler basically used their money or the company money to give themselves. I mean, Jerry Lawler was a 982-time Memphis champion, for crying out loud, and wrestled every single huge name that came through the day.
Hmm.
With company, but you're going to tell Jerry Lawler that he bought his spot and didn't earn it? I'm like, what is this? What is even going on here? But and I was like sitting there watching that, and now like here we are talking about it in terms of me. And like I just kept telling the guy, I was like, I was on these fucking shows before I put one dime into this company. It was after I was on the shows and wanted to keep being on the shows and keep the company alive that I put money into it and started, and
That's a bit of a nuanced opinion for a fan in Highland, Indiana.
yeah, and I'm like, just sit there, and it just made me mad. And and then he's like, well, and I hated that, absolutely hated it. Like I got suspended from shows in Charlestown, and it's actually how Dave Prazak and CM Punk ended up being put into the superheroes, is because there was and I know I haven't told this story yet on the podcast. So there's a lumberjack match going on. Ian Pondo are wrestling. Like me and Chris Hero, as part of the superheroes, are heel lumberjacks outside the ring. And this a fan had jumped Chris Hero at like another company like a week before, had like somehow like did like this, gotten up onto the ring apron and did like this like springboard or some shit, and like hit Hero or something when Hero wasn't looking at this match somewhere. It wasn't an IWA show, but it's like fresh on my mind that, you know, Hero just got jumped by a fan at another show. And so this fan gets up and he's like screaming at me. And I turn to him and I just tell him, like, sort of under my breath, get out of my face, go back and sit down. And he wouldn't do it. He just kept like screaming at me. And I'm like trying to tell him, like, I am the main event heel. I'm not going to let you punk me out in front of
Yeah.
the entire building. Sit your fucking ass down before I have to do something. And he won't sit down. He just keeps it up. And again, I tell him, and then finally I say, like, real loud, sit the fuck down. And he said the magic words, make me.
Hmm.
So I did. Made him sit the fuck down after I threw him through the fucking wall and like used his head as a basketball against one of the beams that was in the wall. And like one of the fans that came to like every show and would buy like 400 hot dogs every week and like pretty much kept IWA in business with all the money he'd spend at the concession stand, got super pissed off. And he was like, Fannin knows better than to touch anybody that's a paying customer, and something needs to happen to him. So Ian's like, I got to take you off the shows. I can't lose my top spending fan. So he told him that, you know, I'd be suspended for like a month or two. And he was fine with that. He was like, okay, I'll accept that. I'll still come to shows. So I couldn't be on shows. So he turns Prazak and Punk heel to join the group so that Prazak could take over as the heel manager while I'm serving my suspension.
A suspension from Ian Rotten is how many of those were ever handed out?
Um, a trillion of them were handed out. Very few of them were actually ever served because he would end up needing the guys. So he'd fire you, he'd suspend you, and then before the next show, can you come back? I'm short a guy, or, you know, cooler heads have prevailed, and are you going to work or not? And so it was very rare that the suspension was actually served. I had to serve this one, and I forget exactly how long I ended up being out, but it was enough that he did the turn, and it was great. Like Punk was one of the big baby faces. It was like him and Suicide Kid were like the top baby faces. He had wrestled earlier in the night, and then I think they did something where he was like coming out to be like a tag to help out maybe Suicide Kid. And so he literally hugs every single fan in the front row, hugs every single one of them on his way out. And like, like Punk would hug him, then like Prazak would sort of hug him, move to the next one. And it was like a Nate Webb entrance before a Nate Webb entrance, because I think the entire Bouncing Souls or whatever he was using
Oh
at the
yeah.
time, I think like the whole thing play. Then they had to like replay it because he was still like And I mean, and it was a night where there was a crowd. So like there was actually 60 people in the front row, and he literally hugged every single one of them that would let him. He hugged. And then like 5 minutes later, he turns on Suicide Kid and joins the superheroes, and the crowd so damn pissed, so damn pissed. And I think that was like, I know there's footage online of the different things, but I think that was like the run that then ended up where me and Hero ended up like turning babyface. If you can believe that, I was actually a babyface for a month or two. They did a thing where like they went to throw, I think it was like Rugby Thug, and they went to throw fire at Patty or something, and me and Hero tried to stop it, and we end up going babyface.
Hmm.
I guess like Ian trying to smooth over my fan
Trying to turn over a new
interactions,
leaf with you, yeah.
trying to get the fans to, you know, maybe cheer me instead of antagonizing me. But
Instead of openly wishing death upon you.
yeah, and that ended up being like leading into the era with where the sound system breaks and Punk's using his empty hand as a microphone, and then like goes to let the girl in the crowd say something. He's like, "There's no microphone, you dumb bitch," and just some of the greatest Punk
All-timer
stuff
stuff.
that, go look that kind of stuff up. It was,
Hmm.
but I think that was like after he stayed heel, after we had turned back baby. But yeah, like I don't manage Punk in that 8-man elimination match with Too Cold Scorpio that goes like an hour. I don't manage him if it wasn't for the having to get suspended, and then Punk and Prazak having to come in and join the superheroes just to keep a heel manager at it. So, and then at like one time it was like, I think Hero's then girlfriend was like Breeze or something like that, like this big tall blonde woman. Like she would be out there, Prazak would be out there, I'd be out there. So there'd be like three of us out there. If it was a 6-man tag or something, we're like, too many people out.
Need a small army of people to accompany you everywhere that you go.
You know. But yeah, so that hour of stories, to get back to the TPI one where, yeah, I'm like, I was ready to throw down with that guy. Although he had like this messed up ear, if I remember right. And I was like sitting there going, what happened to the ear? Am I biting off more than I can chew here? Like how did this happen to the ear? And
Well, you end up kind of punking him out a bit because you get up on the microphone and start like telling him to get in the ring. And dude does my favorite fan chicken out where he's not actually gonna like act like he's chickening out, but he's like, "Oh, you gotta pay me. Come on,
uh,
freaking pay me." Yeah, okay, buddy.
yeah,
I would have loved to have seen that on footage though. That'd been good. IWA Mid-South, known for its riots, like
it was definitely no, and I worshipped at the altar of Tracy Smothers, so I was trying to get my own riot going. Came close.
have you
Came
talked
close.
in depth about the Tracy Smothers incident on here?
Yeah, I think Mark Mark Wolf gave his version of it because he was involved in the match that led
Hmm.
to it. I think Mitch Page gave like his version of it because he was involved in the match, and it was and with Tracy, you never knew if like if a switch flipped in his head and he was like legit trying to kill somebody, or what. You never knew with Tracy. It could have been anything, and it led to like, not only was it just such a great fight, but just like a moment that lived in IWA history, because when Bobby Eaton goes, "My eye!" like every
Yeah.
guy on the roster found a way to like put that into commentary at some point, or would like telling a story pre or post show would like have to somehow find a way to fit in like a my eye at some point. Just a moment that could not believe. And that's like the one that gets talked about the most, just because it actually happened to be caught on film and released. But I am not kidding you. Random Thursday night, Kmart building, 1997, with legit 500 people in the Kmart building. Like Tracy Smothers would have on like just on a random Thursday have a riot almost that bad when he would come in, and he would go like Tracy and so many of the guys that were on those shows would work the Memphis USWA, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
They would be in the Louisville Gardens same night that we're in the Kmart building, running head to head. And we were actually drawing more fans at the Kmart building than what they would have at the Louisville Gardens. But like PG-13, Tracy, Dutch Mantell, Buddy Landell, Doug Gilbert, Tommy Rich, Flash Flanagan, like pretty much almost the entire non-Brian Christopher, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Jeff Jarrett, like minus the core main event of the Louisville Gardens, all those guys would like wrestle the first 4 or 5 matches at the Louisville Gardens, pile into their cars, and come over to the Kmart building, and they'd work the last half of the IWA show at the Kmart building. And like I've said it on the podcast before, there was an entrance to the locker room at the Kmart building in back. Like you could park in back of the building, and there was a door that went right into the dressing room. So like everybody but Tracy would park back there, go into the dressing room, never be seen when they arrived. Tracy would come through the front he'd like get dropped off in front of the building while they went to drive around back. And then he would come in that front entrance, or on a hot summer night, there'd be like the garage door, because we were on the mechanic side of like what with the Kmart car repair side. So they would like throw open the rolling gate garage door that you drive the car in to get your oil change or fix your tire or whatever. They'd throw that open, or it'd be like half open so some air can come in, and Tracy would just come and throw that thing up. And whatever match was happening in the ring, it could be Ox Harley versus Madman Pondo in Fans Bring the Weapons. 18 gallons of blood have already been spilled. There's weapons everywhere. They would have to stop mid-match and grab a headlock and just wait as Tracy like either walked through the front of the building or through that garage door and came in carrying, like dragging his bag, and he would challenge all 500 people to a fight individually, be in their face, and they'd be like every member of Mullet Security would have to like be between Tracy and the fan. Fans would be throwing beer at him. Fans like every damn week. Every week. And when I finally got involved on the shows and got into the back, and then found out that there's a door right there that he could have just like, but he purposely would come through and like just try to get a riot every single week. And he would have those people on the brink of murder. And it would just be simple shit. Just the whole, anybody says Tracy sucks, smacking all of you, and then 500 people chanting Tracy sucks. Just right in the palm of his hands. And that's That's why Tracy was the greatest. And then he would watch everybody else's match, give them pointers, give them help. You know, I've talked so much on here about how I had zero training. I was just like told go out there and run your fucking mouth
Yeah.
because you can make people hate you. Just go do it. And you'll pick up the rest as you go. And that's how it was.
Yeah.
And it would be Tracy though that would be like, don't do this, do that. Don't say this, say it that way. And it was like learning, just soaking in that knowledge. The training, the little bit of training and learning that I did have, it was Tracy, it was Bull Payne, it was, you know, Ricky Morton. It was like all these guys coming through that, like, you know, Ricky Morton going, I've done this a million times with Jim Cornette. You should be doing it this way, maybe not that way.
Yeah.
Do this, say it that way. And I mean, people wouldn't believe the amount of talent that went through IWA doors. And it's like from 97 to like 2004,
A literal
and
who's who.
anybody that's everybody,
Yeah.
came through that door. And if they didn't come through that door, they say it was because it was Cornette, it was Lawler, it was who, like Tommy Dreamer, Taz, like the people that for political reasons would not
Hmm.
have been there. Everybody else came through at one point or another, and it was just to have been there for it and to have experienced it and to been a to be a fly on the wall to some of it that was going on, like wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. I really there's a part of me that really wishes, that I could have come around during that time just to kind of see, what it was like. I think the business as a whole is probably in a better spot right now, I would assume, but man, I like you can't help but romanticize some of that stuff because it just doesn't happen nowadays.
Yeah, there's so much, like so many of those guys, as I was mentioning at the beginning of this, they don't do it anymore. We've lost them, you know, or their body just won't allow it. If they are still with us, they just can't do it anymore, and it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad what the business has lost with those guys, but yeah, it's in a better place. It's a lot safer. The I know a lot of the old timers, and I'm an old timer. I was straight edge, and like Carmine Despirito told Ian, I'd never be one of the boys because I was straight edge. He's like he doesn't go out and party and drink and carouse with the guys after the show. He's not one of the boys. And I told Carmine Despirito straight up to his face, I was like, if that's what it takes to be one of the boys, I don't want to be one of the boys. Don't I will gladly not be one of the boys if it means I don't have to do any of that stuff. So, you know, I think I'm in that way. I was like a trendsetter to now I keep hearing like all these guys are like, oh, these kids today, they don't know a good time. They all just want to play their video games and you know talk about wrestling, and I'm like, you just wrestle, let's go out and party. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's literally a camera every 2 feet. I mean, the the shit that the guys were able to get away with pre everybody having a spy camera in their pocket on them at all
Hmm.
time, like the stuff that was going, like you cannot get away with it anymore.
Yeah.
And not that you should have been trying to get away with it then, but yeah, it's just so different and craziness. Like I couldn't believe the show. Like people were like, why are you still here at the Black Label show? And I'm like, well, the show's still going on, but everybody was like leaving and everything. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you couldn't, unless you were Tracy Smothers trying to make your fourth booking of the day and like needing to get like, you didn't leave.
Yeah.
You didn't leave before that show was over. Like the little money that Ian Rotten gave out didn't get given out until after the main event. If you wanted to be paid, you had to wait till the end of the night.
Yeah.
And when I get to WrestleArts, and not only am I paid, I had to like sign paperwork saying that I was paid, and I'm like, what? What? What is this foreign concept right now? What is going on? And I was like, you're handing me my money before the night's even over? And like the night hasn't even begun. Before the show, they were like, oh, get over here. We want to get this taken care of. And I'm like, what? I just
Yeah.
walked in the door of the building. What am I doing? And they're like, oh, well, you got to put down your work name, put down your real name, put down, sign here and here, and
Oh
print
yeah.
and have and I mean, they got to keep solid books because it's a charity. It's not,
Mhm.
they have to make
Yeah.
sure that they're not a profit. And I'm like sitting there going, wow. And I was like, can I just write my name once? I don't. My gimmick name is my real name. I'm like, what do I need to put James instead of Jim? How legal do I
There
have
you go.
to?
Yeah.
How legal do I got to be here? And it was just, I was floored. I was like, I was like, man, I could just take this money and leave right now and not
I
even.
was gonna say, yeah, like there's a lot I wanted to ask because I feel like that might be one of the big differences is like what are some of the things that you've noticed that are drastically different from when you left versus coming back?
Yeah, I mean that was the biggest. Like I say, this guy's not staying to the end. That floored me, and I was like, I'm except for the like last 2 years when I didn't give a shit and I didn't want to be there. I was like the first one in, last one out
Hmm.
kind of deal. Like for 10 years, I was first in, last out. And I couldn't imagine just being able to like, oh, I'm done. I'm all right, I'm leaving. Whatever. And I mean, there was with the Black Label, there was like Nate and there was Mickey and there was a few people that I was familiar with and had been on shows with. So like in Manawa had come up and surprised me showing up and being there, and like so it had enough familiarity to calm those imposter syndromes and calm the nerves, and except for when I was trying to run backwards and like ate shit and died on the floor and my soul left my body. But you know I say just the biggest difference was just how the I mean, I don't want to be like one of those back in my day, da da da, kind of deal. But it. I think it had its goods and it had its bads, but I think that staying to the end and you know all that kind of stuff, it built that family camaraderie and made us all a real tight knit group.
Hmm.
But I think that also then made it easier for the puppeteer to manipulate us and keep us around a lot longer than all of us wanted to be because of that. So I can see you got and it's not just wrestling. Like even at my shoot job,
Hmm.
like there's me and there's a guy 10 years older than me. And we've got months of sick time. We're the other guy, he is also like we met as security guards at the Cubs.
Hmm.
And last year he like went back to working for the Cubs. And he's working security in the bleachers for a Cub game. Huge brawl breaks out. He tries to break it up. He ends up falling like 8 rows down the center field bleachers in a mob of people that was part of this thing. And from mid thigh to ankle, his left leg was just one thick bruise.
Oof.
Like it was 8 shades of purple from yeah, like mid thigh all the way down to his ankle. And he's at work the next day, hobbling around, asking me like I'm the boss. So he's like, can I sit instead of can you not have me doing rounds? And I'm like, absolutely, just sit in the chair.
God.
You know, then we've got at the other end of the spectrum, we've got the 24-year-olds, not even 24, like 22, 21, 22. 3 months after the new year rolls over, they're out of sick time, they're out of vacation time, and then they're like, "Oh, I've got a headache today. Is there like, can I like somehow make up my hours? I don't have any sick time left. How can I, do I maybe like can I have today off and then just like work an extra hour every day for the next couple of weeks to make up for it so I don't get in trouble with HR?" And I'm like, "No, that's you're already out of time. Like, you're going to call off 3 times before then?
Hmm.
What do you mean?" And it's just it's like and the youngins are like, "Oh, well, you guys are slaves to your job. You don't give them, you let the man just walk all over you, and we have our mental health balance and all this other." And I'm like, "Yeah, us old people just call that laziness. All right, you don't want to work, and you
Oh.
put whatever spin you want on it, but you know." So to me, the fact that everybody's like, "Well, we're taking off and we're going to go do whatever we want to do and have have a life. Maybe it's gonna help with not being burnt out and whatever." But it you lose out on that camaraderie, you lose out on that family atmosphere, but it also helps not say not get
Okay.
taken advantage of,
There's
not
a balance.
so I can see both sides of the coin, I guess, but I'm set in my ways, so I'm gonna be there and be like, okay, now I can start thinking about maybe going and whatever. But it it was different. It definitely different having to sign showing that I made collected my payday and have one even having a payday. I was like, whoo, what is this? What is this? Not being told, oh, next time you'll be the first one I give to, and then like not getting anything for
Hmm.
10 years. Like, oh, I that part was heaven. Really loved that part. That part was great. Um, I think I was like driving them all crazy at WrestleArts because I kept going, well, can I say IWA? And Prophet was like, can you say who you are without saying IWA? And I'm like, not really. I mean, I can. The night before I tried, I don't think anybody really had a real inkling of it, but I could try. And he's like, I was there. I
Yeah.
lived it. Just say it, Let people look it up if they want to, and
Yeah. And
um,
people seem to understand.
yeah. So it was and like I told Manawa, I was like, it's so different when the only experience you have is as the boss, and so you can just go do whatever you want and like ad lib and do whatever, and you only got to answer to yourself. And especially since Ian Rotten wasn't paying attention and wouldn't hear about it until 8 months later, if somebody like happened to mention it and be like, "Oh, did you see what Jim went and did over there?" I mean, I was I was 3 months into the angle with Mickey before he realized anything was fucking going on, and then he was like, "Well, shit, I guess we gotta address that elephant in the room and let you do what you want with that, but I'm not going to let you do what you want. I'm not going to let you do that, but yeah, we'll start doing something with it." And it's like, who the fuck told him? I probably could have had a hell of a lot more fun with that angle, wasn't for that. But yeah, so that part was like real different with the, you know, having to run everything past other people and be like, is this okay? Is this okay? And then I think I was doing it, like I said, I think I was doing it too much because eventually he was like, "Man, just do what you want." I'm like, "Don't tell me that.
Yeah. I
Don't
was gonna
tell
say
me that. Don't tell me
yeah.
that. You do put some kind of boundaries on me, or else you'll never know where the hell I'll end up taking things. So it was very different. It was very different, but it was a lot of fun, and I look forward to hopefully a lot more opportunities. But
Yeah.
it's so far there. I don't know. You're the one doing most of the asking. I don't even know if they were getting any nibbles or what. But I,
Well,
I
actually,
know I know everything that I do. It's
I
Manawa's
wanted to
going. You better light some candles and say some Hail Marys. You might have a better chance than what you're doing on my own here. But
Well, I wanted to ask you, since this is a recent pairing, and yeah, we are, hunting for opportunities here. Jim, what are you looking for with a Fannin Family comeback? Is there anything in particular like that you have your eye on that you want to do?
well, I've said quite a few, and I think like Manawa is like you're really putting yourself into a small box here. With I was like, if I'm coming back, I want to do the things that I didn't get to do, and I've already knocked item one and item two off the list. Not that you know, working with Connor Hopkins was high up on the list. Let me tell you, it was up there. Um, but finally getting to manage Mickey Knuckles, that was great.
Yeah.
Knocked it off the list. Don't want it to be one and done though. So let's
Yeah.
find a way to keep that going. And then I've mentioned I really want to bridge the gap from because Reed Bentley and John Wayne Murdoch were the next generation of
Mhm.
IWA right after I left. I just missed them.
Yeah.
And I think a great story could be told there of finally pairing with the people that carried took the flag from me after I threw the flag down. They picked it up and carried it for the next 5, 6 years, you know, until they had enough and left. So I want to bridge that gap and I want to be able to work with them. I think that's a great story to be told. But
Yeah.
then, you know, the regrets that I have was the fact that, while everybody else going through IWA was using IWA to go to other places and do other things, I stayed chained to IWA. So I just want to experience different places. Say, would love to be able to. I've got 6 states left to do. I've got North Dakota, Idaho, Montana, and then New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. Those are the 6 states I've got left to visit. So wrestling would be a easy way to
Yeah.
get those states, because I'm staring at 50 going, if I ain't made it there yet, uh what's going to get me there? So this would be the easiest way to knock at least some of those states off the list. So that would be a nice thing to do. But just
Yeah.
just being able to work with people like you and try to help develop the next crop. I got to be at the ground floor of the CM Punks, the Chris Heroes, the Seth Rollins, the Claudio Castagnolis, the Nigel McGuinness. Like, I got to Samoa Joe. I got to see all those people. Eddie Kingston. Got to work with all of them and manage quite a few of them, and like be a part of that process to get them. Like, not that I deserve any credit for where they ended up going, but I liked being a part of that and being able to look back and say I played at least a teeny tiny crevice of a part of that. Now let's get the Connor Hopkins onto TV. Let's get, your contemporaries. Who are some of your contemporaries that you think are ready for that next step? Who would you recommend to me
Mm.
for the Fannin family? That's the question.
Mm. That's a good
Because
question.
we know that I stopped watching. So, I only know the guys that I only know the people that I worked with a lifetime ago. So I don't know who the new crop of all that the new stars is going to be. So you tell me, with the people that you've worked with, who should we be trying to recruit? Who do we need to sign up as the next members here?
It's hard to say because I'm selfish and I want to be the Fannin family. But I think there's a really good group of people coming up out of the Midwest right now. When you take a look, I don't know how familiar you are with like a St. Louis Anarchy, with First Wrestling out of Minnesota. With some
Well,
of the places.
Minnesota's Eric Cannon, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, the the two places I've worked so far were run by a guy that wrestled in IWA and run by a guy that was a fan in the front row of IWA. So um, I've, of course, very familiar with Eric Cannon, very familiar with Darren Corbin.
Yeah.
But as far as like the younger generation, I'm not as familiar with them, but I can imagine that Eric Cannon's putting on a damn good show, so he's got to have some good quality talent there.
hmm Yeah, there's a young man by the name of Brandon Gore that I quite enjoy up there. I always love fighting him. Um, he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist nut, but I find that to be endearing a little bit to him.
The conspiracies are endearing. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's off his rocker enough that it's kind of fun. Uh, but Brandon Gore, I could see, he'd have to be okay with some more of the shenanigans, I think. To join the Fannin family fully. That's kind of the thing I'm thinking
Well,
is,
I've been telling people, trying to go legit. I've served my 16 years of exile for the crimes committed by the first generation of the Fannin family, and what was done in IWA. Served my time on that, trying to go legitimate, Try like, we fair and square defeated Braden at
Hmm.
WrestleArts
Yeah,
to
clean as
get
a
this
sheet.
title shot. You know, we're going legit here, so there's no shenanigans. There's no shenanigans
Right.
here.
Yeah.
There's nothing that he's going to have to get used to if he wants a legitimate family atmosphere straight to the titles. We're his guy.
I think when you put it that way, he could be persuaded. I also think a guy that you need to keep your eye on, my good friend Stephen Wolf, recently relocated to the Illinois Valley area. Dreamwave standout, was New Texas, pretty much New Texas's guy forever. Made their title into a world title. He's someone that I think more people should be aware of. And I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend of mine.
Okay. Well, you said last name is Wolf.
Hmm.
Well, we've Fannin Family's had a Wolf before. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's time for a second one. And you did mention Dreamwave. I think we've talked about there's a show coming up for
Yeah.
Dreamwave. If people are listening to this when it drops on the Friday, which is like what, the 11th or whatever,
Hmm.
April 11th, whatever that Friday date, or 10th, 11th, whatever. Um, there's a Dreamwave show going up this weekend,
That is correct. Yeah.
anniversary show,
Anniversary 11.
anniversary
Yeah.
11. You're going for a championship there.
The Dreamwave Championship against Channing Thomas.
And he's got a manager, doesn't he?
He sure does. One Sydney Bacabella.
Me and Sydney go way back.
Uh-huh. I
We
uh
go
I
way
thought
back.
I thought there was some connection there. I see you guys go back and forth on Twitter quite a bit.
We do. He does not seem to be a very big fan of you, which makes me question his tastes. I thought when I knew him 20 years ago that he had better taste than that, but
I thought so too. It hurts. It hurts
maybe
to know.
maybe 20 years of CTE and dementia, because he was no spring chicken when I knew him 20 years ago, and I think he's what, 95 years old now,
He's got to
something
be
like that.
pushing that. Yeah.
He's the horrible toupee.
He calls it a hair system, and I don't know that that's even remotely close to what you would call that.
It's
I think you have to have
a
hair to have a system.
well, his system is to buy a toupee, wig, whatever you want to call it. That's his system. So um, I like your chances of winning.
Yeah. Well, and Jim, it would be great to see you at Dreamwave, you know, perhaps,
Well,
potentially.
that is not too far from my in-laws. My hometown of Morris is just a hop, skip, and a jump from one LaSalle, Illinois. So
Mhm. And for
could be
everyone
could
else
be could
listening
be a
out there,
possibility. Could be a possibility.
yeah. And for everyone else listening out there, yeah, the Fannin family is located pretty close to one another in northern Illinois. So, yeah, anyone out there interested, yeah, let us know.
Yep. It's just hop in a car and go. And yeah, the wife left the room. So yeah, it's just hop in a car and go, and be whoever wants to pay the ransom price can can have the services of a legendary team.
I think that sounds like a wonderful offer right there.
I think it does. I think it does. And we've been going for quite a while here, so we can wrap up at this point. Um, So other than the Dreamwave title that you were about to win that we just talked about, and other than the WrestleArts Triple Crown Get Smashed I mean, who better to represent a title named after a burger than a guy who from till I until I got gout in my 30s, I lived cheeseburger, at least a cheeseburger a day, was this guy right here. You don't look like this eating things other than burgers and pizza. So this title was made for the Fannin family. And just another reason why David Ali just needs to shine it up. Don't do what Randy Savage did to the Intercontinental title from what the kept seeing online all day today. He tried to shine it up with something and ended up taking all the paint right off of it. I didn't read the whole post, but saw that hitting the internet today. Don't do that with it, David Ali. It's a
Yeah,
brand new belt,
brand
but
new. It's very shiny still.
brand new, still shiny. So you shouldn't have too much shining to do to it. But get that belt ready for us come May 23rd because it's coming into the family. But other than those two titles that will soon be around your waist, what does Connor Hopkins have to offer the people coming up? Merch, dates,
Yeah.
what you got?
So, first and foremost, if you want to find me wherever, I'm all over the internet at Connor Hopkins 98, Connor for people who are wondering how to spell that. I have a DVD. It's called Hate Never Dies, a Connor Hopkins mixtape. Hold on, let me grab it. Look at that. Oh yeah, will it focus? Look at that. Anyway, yeah, I have
Yeah,
a
there it is.
DVD. I have a DVD set out. It's a little mixtape of some of my best matches. You can hit me up online if you would like to purchase a copy of this. Um, yeah, I did all of it myself. It's all designed and edited by yours truly because physical media will never die. Uh, and apart from that, again, as far as upcoming dates,
Now there
check
was a
out.
bundle that had a T-shirt,
Yes, there was a bundle that had a t-shirt that is going to
and
be
you were
shipping
able to
soon.
find a T-shirt in my size because I put it on the pre-order tent size. I can't remember what you had as the biggest offer, but I was like, make it a tent. And
I will take care of you. Don't you fret. Yeah, you can be like Jim. You can be smart like Jim and pick up the bundle. Just shoot me a message. Otherwise, yeah, check out Dreamwave Wrestling. Check out. I'm gonna be over at Magnum Wrestling later on this month over in Omaha, Nebraska. Check out WrestleArts in Indiana and all sorts of other places. Yeah, social media mostly at Connor Hopkins 98 for all sorts of irrelevant takes and bad photographs.
music videos. You have a
Yes.
lot of good stuff. If anybody had been paying attention to our back and forth on the social media apps leading up to the Wrestle Art show, they would not have been so shocked and surprised.
They
You
should have
know,
seen it coming.
Braden is supposed to be a teacher and he could not connect those dots and figure that out. And he's trying to teach the future of our, the children in this. I tell you, I
Indiana
tell
Public
you,
Schools. I don't know.
don't do it. Don't do it, people in Indiana. Don't do it. Don't send them to him. Find another teacher.
That's right. Someone like me, someone who's smart.
There you go. And this is going to wrap up another edition of Fannon's Flashbacks. We're definitely going to have Connor on here again as we get more bookings under our belt and build up the Fannin family. Maybe a return when he's got these two title belts to
Hmm?
try to get the blurred background to not block out as he's holding. I have two stickers of Fannon's Flashbacks that I practiced and tried like hell to get to the camera to show earlier before we started recording, and was doing the same. It was not working. But check my social medias, jfannin73 on Instagram and Twitter. Plenty of times that I will post the pictures of these two stickers. You can get those for $7.50 shipped anywhere in the United States. There's Hopefully, I've shown you the prototype of the hat,
Are
Fannin
coming up
Family
soon.
hat, as long as this company is not a scam that I ordered from online. We'll find out if they actually show up. The stickers ended up showing up eventually, so we'll see if the hats do. But then you'll have hats and stickers that are available. Make sure you're watching these podcasts on IWTV so that Smart Mark and IWTV know that they made the right choice in airing these podcasts on there. I'm greatly appreciate them giving me this opportunity. So turn them on, just let them run. Watch one right after the other. Just if you're leaving the house, put it on and let it run. People, just
Yeah,
let it run.
just let it run.
Let it run. Build up the war chest of the Fannin family that I can put towards getting other wrestlers on board in the family, even though Connor wants me all to himself. He said so. You heard it. But
It's
we
true.
are accepting other members. Mickey Knuckles is a member, so you can try to. Her schedule is quite full and all over the world, but we can hopefully at some point get Connor and Mickey together on the same show and maybe have a intergender tag
I was gonna
match.
say,
We'll
what an insane tag team that would be.
take on anybody you got. And as we've been mentioning, WrestleArts, May the 23rd, that's the next official booking that I have with Connor. And we are going to win that title and bring it home. The ninth heavyweight champion in Fannin family history, Connor Hopkins. Get with it. Bring us to your event. We'll just keep winning titles. He can still only be the ninth champion, but we can add
We'll
more
keep winning.
titles. Get your tickets at WrestleArtsTix.com for that May 23rd show. Connor, great having you on. Like I said, we'll have you on again. And with that, until the next episode, so let it be written, so let it be done. Good day.